So welcome to tonight's Dharma talk. Tonight's Dharma talk is about equanimity and its supports. So there's a lot of ways we can describe equanimity. There's a lot of words for equanimity. Some of these words include being centered, unshaken, calm, still, emotional flexibility, like bamboo in the wind. There's a whole range of words that we can use. And there are two Pali words that are used for equanimity in early Buddhism. One Pali word is upekkha, and another Pali word is, and I've got to be careful how I pronounce this, sometimes I can't quite get it out, tachamajjahattata. So as well as equanimity, upekkha means to look over, as well as to see with patience. It's also understood as seeing with understanding. And it's like when we have equanimity and we see with understanding, it's like we're stepping back and seeing the bigger picture. Sometimes I think of this term of seeing with understanding like being on a hill looking over a battle. You sort of see everything that's happening and you're not in the battle, but you can sort of see the broader perspective. And the other word, tachamajjahattata, is a compound word made up of a few Pali terms. Tacha means there, and sometimes it refers to all these things. Majja means middle, and tatta means to stand or to pose. So put together, the word means to stand in the middle of all this. And as a form of equanimity, being in the middle refers to balance. And it refers to remaining centered and balanced in the middle of whatever's happening. So you're unshaken. Sometimes I think of like being in the stillness of the eye of the storm. It's just like everything's happening around you, but one is still and perfectly balanced in the midst of it all. So the other way one way we can understand this, it's like a ballast keeps a ship upright in the storms. So equanimity is like that balance, that stability, that calm, that confidence, and that integrity of equanimity keeps us balanced in the middle of the vicissitudes of life, the ups and downs of life. Sometimes it's referred to as life's talked about as having 8 worldly winds: praise and blame, loss and gain, pain and pleasure, and fame and disrepute. And one way I think about that last one is social acceptance and social rejection. So it's remaining poised and unshaken by those vicissitudes. There's another way of understanding equanimity as well, and this is in terms of relationships. It's about seeing all beings equally, neither overly attracted to, not being shaken around by one's attraction or aversion, and seeing beings as equally. Not all beings are equal, but just this seeing beings in an equal way, without being biased by wanting something from them or wanting to get rid of them or whatever it is. It's just this balanced perspective of seeing things as they are. There's so much we can talk about with equanimity. I gave a talk on it that went on for an hour last Saturday. And I'll probably put it up on the net, but this is a kind of a shortened version of that talk. So in the Visuddhimagga is a text that was edited by Buddhaghosa, who was a scholar, and he edited all this information about meditation, and it ended up being this kind of really big, fat, thick lem sorry, did I say lem? That's Thai, sorry. Big fat text that was kind of like, it came out as the gold standard of meditation. It was written 9 centuries after the Buddha passed. So there's quite a bit of controversy about the standards they talk about. Nonetheless, in this text there's lots of information. They talk about 10 different types of equanimity. And I won't go into detail of all these types, I'll just tell you what they are. There's the 6-factored equanimity. And this refers to equanimity about the senses. One is neither craving after or averse to the senses. The 6 senses in Buddhism: sight, sound, smell, touch, taste, and mind. Mind is considered as a sense, and the objects of that sense are mental phenomena. So it's kind of an equanimity about the 6 senses. The other type of equanimity is equanimity as a divine abode. And here we talked about, we did that practice earlier this evening, where we practiced equanimity as a divine abode. In other words, we roused the quality of equanimity, and we made that equanimity an object of our Serenity meditation practice. And you're invited to kind of absorb into it and it into you, and you abide in this boundless state. I mean, it's a lot I can talk about the boundless state of equanimity. It is one of these ways that equanimity is understood. There's equanimity as a factor of awakening, and the 7 factors of awakening are these: mindfulness, investigation of dharmas, which is kind of like a curiosity and interest in experience; energy, which is like the energy to support our inquiries and so on; joy, or piety in Pali; tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. And with the 7 factors of awakening, equanimity is like the culmination of the previous 6. Sometimes they're understood as happening in a sequence, like you have mindfulness, and you have investigation, and then you have energy, and then you have joy, and tranquility, and then concentration, and then equanimity. It's the culmination of all those. Equanimity of energy is the 4th type of equanimity they're talking about here, and this is an equanimity of where one is neither too lax, too kind of not much energy put forth into the practice, nor one is over energetic. It's the balanced perspective of energy, or effort sometimes it's called. Equanimity as a feeling, and here we have 3 types of feelings. Well, there's different categories around feelings, but feelings are the hedonic quality of an experience, the hedonic tone of experience. So equanimity as a feeling is, it's neither pleasant nor unpleasant. It's kind of in the middle. But this in the middle is not confused with confusion. It's not confused with ignorance. Like sometimes, us worldly, ignorant beings like myself will sometimes have a neither pleasant or unpleasant feeling, but it's kind of like this confusion about the experience. I'm not sure whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, so I'm kind of in the middle. But this equanimity of feelings is really like how the awakened beings experience this feeling of neither pleasant nor unpleasant. Equanimity about insight. Well, have you ever thought you were awakened? You ever thought you had an amazing realization? Wow, I know now. Or I'm awakened, or I'm enlightened. Well, it's equanimity about that. You're not going to get fooled into it. You're not going to take it on and identify whether it's just an insight. And equanimity as a specific neutrality. And this is, what they talk about this equanimity is, they mention beautiful states of mind. In other words, no matter what sort of state of mind you have, whether it's beautiful or ugly, when I say beautiful, it's like states of mind that are uplifting and quite sublime. And you're equanimous about that, you're not attaching to them. Equanimity of the jhanas. Now there's 8 jhanas. Jhanas are states of very highly refined concentration, and they're all the states of consciousness actually, based on absorptions into progressively more and more refined levels of absorption. Sometimes there's variation about how people talk about the jhanas, but in most Buddhist traditions, they talk about 8 jhanas. 8 material jhanas and 8 immaterial jhanas. Sorry, 4 material jhanas and 4 immaterial jhanas. So the 4th jhana, the 3rd jhana is, a feature of the 3rd jhana is a happiness mixed with equanimity. It comes out as a kind of a contentment. But a feature of the 4th jhana, the 4th material jhana, is equanimity. And here it is somewhat, one is unshaken by everything. One is still and quiet, silent. And the analogy used in the descriptions of the jhanas, this particular jhana, is as a being, as if a being is cloaked in a sheet, covering this person completely. And the sheet, I imagine, is kind of like luminous and bright. And one gets a sense one's insulated from the ways of the world. We're insulated from the vicissitudes of life, the praise and blame, loss and gain, pain and pleasure, and fame and disrepute. However, we're luminously and brightly aware of it all. So that's really cool. And the last equanimity that's described is the equanimity of purification. Now, as far as I understand, these are all my interpretations, but as far as I understand about this one, is that we can kind of purify our mind. We purify our mind by not feeding into the defilements, basically, by not feeding into the distortions of our mind. Like sometimes we feed into these distortions by following them up or engaging with them or attending to them. Like, for example, I could start to get worried about something, and I could kind of feed into it and worry more and more and more and more. So my mind gets kind of defiled, or gets kind of polluted by that. So when we talk about purifying the mind, when we don't do that, we don't feed into, the term in Pali is called kilesa. It means mental distortions. We don't feed into mental distortions, and therefore they don't grow, and they kind of fade away. And we purify our mind. We purify our mind of the kilesa. So this last one, as far as I understand, is equanimity about that purification. So one is neither saying, oh, fantastic, I'm purifying my mind, or one is not saying, oh, I don't want to purify my mind. It's just, you're kind of balanced, and in the middle, you're unshaken, and you're kind of perfectly at peace with it. There's many ways to cultivate equanimity, and we can cultivate equanimity in daily life as we interact and respond to people, places and things that arise in our lives. We can also reflect on the realities of life and death and illness, and how we're going to be parted from everything, and how we are the owners of our actions, heir to our actions, born of our actions, related to our actions, and supported by our actions. Whatever actions we shall do, of those actions we shall be the heir. In other words, a reflection on karma. how karma has an effect. These reflections can cultivate a sense of equanimity. And one word I used in the guided meditation, deep peacefulness, and I think that's a good way of describing equanimity. Another way we could describe it is as acceptance. Not in the sense where we agree and condone with everything that's happening, but we look at reality of things and we deeply accept the reality of things. You know that Serenity prayer? The Serenity prayer goes something like, God, yeah, that's right, yeah. Yeah, thank you. I'll just repeat that for the recording. The Serenity prayer goes something like, give me the courage to change the things I need to change. Give me the serenity to accept the things I can't change, and give me the wisdom to know the difference between one and the other, or know the difference between those two. So that's one way we can cultivate equanimity. Another way we cultivate equanimity, other ways we cultivate equanimity, of course, is through meditation. And it is the result of insight meditation. It is the result of mindfulness and inquiry and energy. Those first three factors of the seven factors of awakening. And that is also what happens in insight meditation. Insight meditation is looking at cause-effect relationships, it's looking at dependent arising, it's looking at the characteristics of existence, impermanence, not self, and dukkha. And when we do this, we do develop a realistic insight about the way things are. And another way we can cultivate equanimity is as a result of serenity. And earlier I described what happens in the fourth jhana, this equanimity. And so it's a result of practice, and it is also a practice in and of itself. And the practice in and of itself is equanimity as a divine abode, as we practiced earlier. And in that, what I invited you to do, was rouse this quality of equanimity and make it an object of your samadhi. So, how am I going for time? Oh, maybe that's it. Oh no, I better give you the support. Can you cope with just another 5 minutes? Okay. According to, another way, sorry. This is a really powerful way. Another way of cultivating equanimity is living with impeccable ethics. And when you live with impeccable ethics, one naturally develops an understanding of life. And one naturally lives a kind of blameless life. A blameless life. One is clear and certain about their decisions because they're living ethically. And this certainty is a support actually for equanimity. So the popular teacher Gil Fonsdale talks about a number of supports for equanimity. And the first support is just what I mentioned, integrity and virtue. And when we live with integrity and virtue, we feel confident about our actions and our words. And the result of this is blamelessness, which is a wonderful sense. It's like we're feeling at peace with the way things are. The second support for equanimity is the sense of assurance that comes from faith. In Pali, faith is called saddha, and it's different from blind faith, of course. It is kind of more like a confidence and a trust in the way things are. A confidence and a trust in ourselves to practice, in the Dharma, and in the teachings. And what happens here is when we have confidence or trust. There's a slight difference between confidence and trust. Confidence is knowing something works and being willing to do it because you have confidence that it's going to work. Trust is more like not being sure, not knowing from experience, but knowing from a kind of a trust, basically. A trust gives us the energy to move from the known to the unknown, the energy and the motivation to help us shift from dukkha to awakening. The third support is a well-developed mind, and we develop the mind through practices of serenity and insight, which I explained just earlier about how we can use those practices to develop equanimity. A fourth support is a sense of ease and well-being. Just make life so much better. And when you can have a sense of well-being and ease, things kind of work out smoothly. And it's kind of like a resource for us to live at peace with things, which is one way we can understand equanimity. The fifth support is understanding or wisdom. And I used to, when I used to teach, I've been teaching for a long time. I used to teach all sorts of groups of people in mental health services and publicly and all sorts of places. And when I used to talk about wisdom, when I started to teach, I just used to say, oh, this is what wisdom is. And I'd cite the first two factors of the Eightfold Path, which are right view and right intention. And I explain what they were. Right view is having a clear perspective on things, and right intention are intentions that are of letting go, goodwill, and letting go or renunciation, goodwill, and harmlessness. But I kind of found that boring after a while, because it was me just telling people, and I found it much more interesting to ask what people thought about, what the audience was thinking about wisdom. And I was so honoured and delighted to hear what they'd say. And one time I was doing a group in the detention centres on Christmas Island, actually, working with asylum seekers. And one, she looked like she was about 8 years old, Iranian girl. She just had her comment. She said, wisdom is knowing what is good and knowing what is bad. And after some discussion, we added to that a little bit. We said, knowing what is good and acting upon that, and knowing what is bad and not acting, and not behaving in a bad way. So I thought that was really a kind of wonderful way of thinking about wisdom. And there is a citation from a Buddhist monk called Thanissaro Bhikkhu. He said, the Buddha had a simple test for measuring wisdom. You're wise, he said, to the extent you can get yourself to do things you don't like doing, but know will result in happiness, and refrain from things you like doing, but know will result in pain and harm. Actually, wisdom is the fruit of awakening. So equanimity is an awakening, is a wisdom quality. The sixth support for equanimity is insight. And we've talked about insight on several occasions here. It's actually seeing the way things are. It is knowing dependent arising, and it is also seeing and knowing anicca, dukkha, anatta, or impermanence, the characteristics of existence, impermanence, unsatisfactionness. That things that are impermanent have no capacity to give us enduring happiness, and not self. In other words, there's no single thingness in life. There is just this coming together of processes, streams of dependently arising processes and interactions, kind of coming together. There's no single thingness in all this. It's just processes coming together. So that's insight, as far as I understand. And the final support for equanimity is freedom. And as far as I understand, freedom results from letting go. And I think Ajahn Chah said something like this: let go a little, you have a little bit of freedom. Let go a lot, you have more freedom. Let go completely, you have complete freedom. So thanks for your attention, and may we have peace with the reality of the way things are. That is, may we have equanimity. So let's have a few moments, just a moment of quietude, and if there's any questions or comments or insights, please share.